all, we saw in the roots how they are modified to perform different functions, and then about the stem, how the stem is modified to perform different functions, and also about the leaf, about the structure of the leaf, or the different parts of the leaf, and how the leaves are modified to perform different functions, and also about the different types of leaves. So all these are the external structures that are present in the plant, particularly in a angiospermic plant. So today we are going to see about the most important structure in the plant. So what it is a flower. So flower is the most important structure in a plant. So we've seen different types of plants. So different types of plants, they show specific or the unique characteristic features. So they vary in the height. That is, we saw that based on the height of the stem, there are different types like herbs, shrubs, and trees. So, and also depending upon the thickness of the stem. So there are so many ways in which the plants can be classified. So on the basis of the lifespan, we saw that it is as biennials, perennials, annuals. So these are based on the lifespan. So if you take a flower, it is one of the characteristic feature in the angiospermic plant. So because of this flower, actually it is a reproductive unit and it is responsible for the sexual reproduction. So there occurs a variety of plants as a result of sexual reproduction. That is, there occurs a fusion of the gametes. So here, if you take a flower, you would have seen n number of or variety of flowers in different plants. So there are so many ways in which the plants can be classified on the basis of flower. For example, on the basis of appendages and on the basis of type of structures that are present in the flowers, like unisexual or the bisexual flowers. So there are so many ways in which the plants can be classified on the basis of flowers. So flowers are one of the important structures and they are responsible for the reproduction. So it is the reproductive unit in the angiospermic plant. So it is meant for sexual reproduction. So if you take a flower, the flower as a stalk, we know that yesterday itself we saw that pedicel, with pedicel they are called the pedicellate flowers, and if there is no pedicel, we saw it as sessile. So a flower has a stalk. So all the flowers will have a stalk and that is called the pedicel. So this is the pedicel and the swollen end is called the thalamus. So this part is called the thalamus or receptacle. So if there is no stalk, it is called the sessile. And sometimes reduced leaf found at the base of the pedicel. As the base of the pedicel, we can see some reduced leafy structures that are called the bracts. But these bracts are not present in all the flowers. So the flowers with bracts are called the bracteate. And those flowers without bracts are called ebracteate. So if you take a flower, there are different parts. You know that. So this is the pedicel. Then the swollen part is thalamus or the receptacle. And so this is the sepal and this is the petal. The colorful part is the petal. And this is the androecium or the male reproductive part, that is stamen. And this is pistil or carpel, female reproductive part. So we'll see in detail about the structures of different parts. So if you take a flower, generally it is a reproductive unit and consists of pedicel and thalamus, and we'll see in detail about the bracts. So bracts, we saw that it is a reduced leaf structure that are present at the base of the pedicel. So these bracts also vary in different types of plants. For example, if you take, so we saw the bracteate and ebracteate. And similarly, there are many other terms which are associated with bracts like involucre, which is called the whorl of bracts. That is called involucre. and spathe. So what do you mean by spathe? So when large bract, so the bract actually when it encloses the inflorescence, large bract completely encloses the whole inflorescence, that is bunch of flowers. Inflorescence. For example, if you take banana and maize, you would have seen that inside there will be flowers, banana flowers, and they are completely covered by a large bract. So that is called the spathe. So spathe is a large bract which completely encloses the whole inflorescence. Example is banana and maize. And then there are other types like petaloid bract. So here the size of the bract is greater than the size of the flower. The bract size is greater than the size of the flower. So the example here is bougainvillea. So in bougainvillea, the colored structure actually present as a bract and it is called the petaloid bract. And there is another type that is called the blooms. Here the small dry scaly bracts. The bracts are of scaly structures. Small dry scaly bracts are called blooms. Example, wheat and grass. So these are the common examples actually. So there are different types of bracts like involucre, spathe, petaloid bract, and blooms. So involucre is nothing but the whorl of bracts, and spathe is the type of large bract which completely encloses the whole inflorescence. Example, banana and maize. And petaloid bract, the size of the bract is greater than the size of the flower. Example, bougainvillea. And blooms, small dry scaly bracts are called blooms. Example, wheat and grass. So these are the some of the modified forms of bracts. So if you take the structure of the flower, it has actually 4 kinds of whorls are present. They are arranged in the thalamus. So this is the thalamus or the receptacle. So here actually it consists of 4 whorls. What are they? Calyx, Corolla, Andrecium and Gynoecium. So calyx, actually these sepals, they made up the calyx, and corolla is nothing but the petals. Then the male reproductive organs are gynoecium, and the female reproductive organ here is the gynoecium. So andrecium is the male reproductive organ and gynoecium is the female reproductive organ. So if you take any flower, it has the 4 kinds of flower. But in some cases, all the 4 whorls are not present. So in that case, it is called as an incomplete flower. If all the 4 whorls are present, that is calyx, corolla, andrecium, and gynoecium present, then that is called the complete flower. So complete flower is the one which have all the 4 whorls, calyx, corolla, andrecium, and gynoecium. An incomplete flower is the one in which any one of the whorl is absent. For example, if you take the unisexual flower, it will have either the andrecium or the gynoecium. Then that is an example for an incomplete flower. Okay. So, but in some flowers like lily, the calyx and corolla are not distinct. It is termed as perianth. So the calyx and corolla together, it constitutes the perianth. And in that case, we saw that calyx, it is made up of sepals and corolla is made up of petals. Here, if it is saperianth, then the term is called tepals. It is called tepals. And when a flower has both androecium and gynoecium, then it is called a bisexual flower. So bisexual flower will have all the four whorls, calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. But the flower having either only androecium or the only gynoecium, it is called the unisexual flower. So that type of flowers, that is only stamens or the androecium, it is called the staminate flowers. So it has only stamen. And if it is having only gynoecium, it is called the pistillate flowers. So here you should not confuse this with the terms monoecious and dioecious. So what do you mean by monoecious and dioecious? So the monoecious is actually when it contains, when both staminate and pistillate flowers both staminate and pistillate flowers are born on the same plant. Same plant, then that is called monoecious. So when both the staminate and the pistillate flowers are born on the same plant, then that is called monoecious. When they are present on a different plant, it is called the dioecious. So the unisexual is, what do you mean by unisexual and bisexual? Yes, term unisexual refers to the flower. The flower with only either androecium or with only gynoecium is called unisexual, and the flower as both androecium and gynoecium, then it is called the bisexual. So monoecious means when both staminate and pistillate flowers are born on the same plant, then that is monoecious, and they are present on the different plant, that is called the dioecious. Okay. So there are different types of classification. So one is based on the type of symmetry. The flowers are of three types, that is actinomorphic or the radial symmetry, and zygomorphic or bilateral symmetry, and then asymmetry. So you'll see in detail about actinomorphic, zygomorphic and asymmetry. So for example, the case of actinomorphic or radial symmetry, here the flower can be divided into two equal. So you would have studied about the symmetry in animal kingdom also, right? So the same concept here. So here you're saying it as actinomorphic flowers. So flower can be divided into two equal radial halves in any radial plane. So if you cut in any plane passing through the center, it can be divided into two equal halves. Example, mustard, datura, and chili are examples for actinomorphic. So here if you see the actinomorphic flower, so any plane can cut into two equal halves. So this is the actinomorphic or radial symmetry. But if you see this is a zygomorphic flower. So only in one plane it can be cut into two equal halves. So this is zygomorphic. So actinomorphic and then zygomorphic or bilateral symmetry. So here the flower can be divided into two similar halves only in one particular vertical plane. So example here is P, Kulmogar, B and Cassia. So you have to be clear with these examples because many questions may come in this, like they may give any one example and what type of flower it is, whether it is an actinomorphic or zygomorphic. So be clear with the example, with the concept. Then in the case of asymmetric or irregular, so here the flower cannot be divided into two similar halves by any vertical plane. So but through any plane, it cannot be divided into two halves passing through the center. And example here is canna. So example for an asymmetric flower is canna. So this type of classification is based on the type of symmetry as actinomorphic, zygomorphic or asymmetric. Then the different type of classification, it is based on the number of floral appendages. So depending upon the number of floral, for example, number of petals here. So the flowers are of many types. Trimerous, here the floral appendages are multiple of 3. So either it can be 3 or it can be in a multiple of 3. And in the case of tetramerous, the floral appendages are in multiple of 4. But in the case of pentamerous, the floral appendages would be in the multiple of 5, maybe 3, 4 or 5. So based on the number of floral appendages, the flowers can be classified. So this is second type of classification. First we saw about the type of symmetry. Then this classification is based on the number of floral appendages. Then based on the position of calyx, corolla and androecium in respect to the ovary or thalamus. So on the thalamus we saw the different whorls are attached. So based on the position of calyx, corolla and androecium in respect of the ovary on thalamus, the flowers are of 3 types. Either it is hypogynous, perigynous or epigynous. So what do you mean by this hypogynous, perigynous and epigynous? So if you take the different types of flowers, for example, here the gynoecium occupies the highest position here, while other parts are situated below it. So for example, this is an example for a hypogynous flower. So if you see here, what is the position of gynoecium? So what is the gynoecium? So this is sepal, this is sepal, and this is petal, and this is androecium, and this is the gynoecium. So if you see the position here, what about the position of the gynoecium? So it is in the highest position. So here this is the sepal, petal, and this is the androecium. So when compared to all these whorls, the gynoecium occupies the highest position, while the other parts are situated below it. So it is called the hypogynous, and the ovary here is said to be superior ovary because ovary is in the superior position. So when compared to this gynoecium, all the other whorls are situated below the gynoecium, and the ovary is said to be superior since it is above all the other whorls. Example, mustard, China rose and brinjal. So this is about this hypogynous. The type of flower is a hypogynous and the ovary is superior in the case of hypogynous. Then next is the perigynous. So what do you mean by perigynous? Here the gynoecium is situated in the center. For example, if you see here, the gynoecium is in the center and other parts of the flower are located on the rim of the thalamus. So here this is the thalamus and all the other parts are located on the rim of the thalamus almost at the same level. That is, this gynoecium and other whorls are almost equal. Here if you see, it is above, but here the gynoecium and other whorls are almost at the same level. So that is called the perigynous condition, and the ovary here is half inferior. So here it is superior, but here the ovary is called half inferior ovary. And example is plum, rose and peach. So these are the examples for perigynous. So be specific with the examples. Okay. So first we saw hypogynous, then perigynous. The next condition is the epigynous. So what do you mean by epigynous? So here the margin of thalamus grows upwards enclosing the ovary. So this is the margin of the thalamus. The swollen part is called the thalamus. This thalamus, it grows upwards. It encloses the ovary. The ovary is getting enclosed by the thalamus and it getting fused with it. It fuses with the thalamus. So other parts of the flowers like sepals, petals and the androecium, they rises above the ovary. They are all above the ovary here. So this is the ovary and all the other parts are above the ovary. So the ovary here is called the inferior ovary since it is below the other parts. So the condition is called the epigynous. So example here is ova, cucumber, and ray florets of sunflower. They are the example for the epigynous. So based on what basis we are classifying these types of plants? Based on the position of calyx, corolla, and androecium. With respect to gynoecium, we are comparing all these three worlds with respect to the gynoecium or the position of the ovary. The flowers are classified into either hypogynous and perigynous or epigynous. Okay, is it clear? Clear, right? So we'll go to the next. So we'll see in detail about the parts of the flower. That is about the different worlds, calyx, corolla, androecium, and gynoecium. So today we'll see about calyx and corolla. So what is a calyx? It is the outermost whorl of the flower. So the outermost whorl of the flower is the calyx, and it is made of sepals. So this is the calyx, and it is made up of sepals. So generally, what is the role of these sepals? They are green, leaf-like. They are like leaf-like structures, and they protect the flower in the bud stage. So when the bud, that is the flower, is very young, it has to be protected. No, so this protection is provided by the sepals. So these sepals protect the flower in the bud stage. But the calyx may be either gamosepalous or polysepalous. So what do you mean by this term? Gamo or poly. So gamo means if the sepals are united, that is if they stay together, then the condition is gamosepalous. If the sepals are free, then it is called the polysepalous. So the calyx may be either gamosepalous or polysepalous. So here the calyx also may be modified in different ways. For example, in some plants like Musenda. So here the sepal enlarges, the normal sepal, it enlarges and forms a leaf-like structures. And it forms a colored structure. These are all exceptional cases. And in the case of Trepa, the calyx is modified into spines. And it helps in the protection of fruits. So this is the role of calyx in the case of Trepa, protection of fruits. But in the case of some family in sunflower, it is modified into structures called pappus. That is, the calyx are modified into hair-like structures called pappus, and this pappus, it helps in the dispersal of fruit. In some species of sunflower family. And there is another category that is called persistent sepals. In this case, the sepals do not fall and they remain attached to fruit. In that case, they are called persistent sepal. Here the examples are tomato, brinjal, cotton, and many are the examples for the persistent sepal. That is, the sepals do not fall and they remain attached to the fruit. So these are the different modifications of the calyx or the sepals. That is, in Musanda, the sepal enlarges and forms a leaf-like structures, and in Trappa, the calyx modified to form spine, which helps in the protection of fruits. And in the case of some species of sunflower family, it forms a hair-like structure. The calyx form a hair-like structure called pappus, which helps in the dispersal of fruit. And in some species like tomato, brinjal, the sepals do not fall and they remain attached to the fruit, and it is called the persistent sepals. Okay, so these are some of the modifications of the calyx or the sepals. So next is the corolla. So what is a corolla? It is a whorl next to calyx. So the outermost whorl is calyx, the next to it is corolla, and it is composed of petals. So petals are brightly colored. So what is the role of these petals? They are brightly colored and helps to attract insects for pollination. So this is one of the important aspects in an angiospermic plant. Right? Angiospermic plant, because of the presence of these colorful petals, they attract the insects for pollination. But if you see the gymnosperms, there are no flowers or the fruit. So the pollination there is carried out only by wind. So here they attract agents for pollination. And corolla may be gamopetalous. Here also the similar thing. It may be either gamopetalous, that is petals united, or polypetalous, petals free. And shape and color of corolla, it vary in plants. Yeah, you could have seen the petals. Each and every plant have the different types of petals. So the shape and color of corolla vary in plants. And the shape may be either tubular or bell-shaped, funnel-shaped, or wheel-shaped. And we'll see some of the different types of the corolla. For example, in some cases, it is actinomorphic polypetalous corolla. Actinomorphic polypetalous. So here they form a structure that is called the cruciform structure. So 4 petals are present, and the lower part of the petal is called the claw. And the upper broad part is called the limb. That is, they form the cruciform structure. The example is under the actinomorphic polypetalous. So polypetalous and the gamopetalous, you are clear with it, right? That is, we saw here the polypetalous is petals free and gamopetalous is petals united. So under polypetalous, the example is cruciform. It forms the 4 petals, and the lowermost part is called the claw, and the upper part is called the limb. And here the example is radish and mustard. Then under actinomorphic, gamopetalous. So depending upon the whether fused or free. So here actinomorphic, gamopetalous. The first one is campanulate or bell-shaped. Or bell-shaped. So this type, this has the 5 petals and its shape is similar to that of bell. The petal shape will be similar to bell, so it is the campanulate or bell shape. And example is tobacco here. Tobacco, raspberry, they're all example for bell shape. And then second one is tubular. So this also has 5 fused petals. This florets of sunflower. Florets of sunflower. Then the third type is funnel shaped or infundibuliform. So in this so in all these cases, there will be fused petals, funnel shaped or infundibuliform. Funnel shape or infundibuliform. So here the example is Datura and Petunia. Then the fourth one is wheel-shaped. Here they form a wheel-shaped structure. Example, brinjal. So these are all the examples for the actinomorphic gamopetalous. And then the other types are zygomorphic polypetalous. Here the butterfly shaped corolla. For example, so this is the structure of the corolla here. These are all connected. And here the structure is called, the posterior end is called the maxillum. And here this is called the wings or alley. Here maxillum or standard. And here it is called the keel. That is, these are united petals. Keel or carina. So this is an example for a zygomorphic polypetalous. This is in the case of Papilionaceae family. And the next is the zygomorphic gamopetalous. So here there are two types. One is bilabiate. So here it is divided into two lips. That is, the petals are divided into two lip-like structure, and the place in between the two lips is called the corolla mouth. The example is ocimum, that is basil, or ligulate. Here the upper part of corolla is long and they form a flattened tongue-like structures. And the example here is the ray florets of sunflower. So these are the different examples for the different forms of corolla. So corolla, that is only this petal, it constitutes the corolla. So there are different types: actinomorphic polypetalous, actinomorphic gamopetalous, and zygomorphic polypetalous and zygomorphic gamopetalous. So if you take the actinomorphic polypetalous, the example is the cruciform corolla, that is the example as a radish and mustard. Here they consist of 4 petals, and the lower part is called the claw and the upper part is called the limb. So this is an example for actinomorphic polypetalous cruciform corolla. And in the case of actinomorphic gamopetalous, we have different types like bell-shaped, tubular, funnel-shaped or infundibuliform and wheel-shaped. So depending upon the shape of the petals, they are classified into different types and they come under the category of gamopetalous, that is fused. In the case of this campanulate or bell-shaped, the petals will be of bell-shaped, and example is tobacco. Here in the form of tube, example disc florets of sunflower, and the funnel shape in the case of datura and begonia, and wheel-shaped in the case of a brinjal. And under zygomorphic polypetalous, you have the butterfly-shaped corolla, and here mainly the family that is Papilionaceae. Comes under the butterfly-shaped corolla. So here, actually, these are all free petals. The outer petal is, it encloses the all the other petals, that is called the waxillum. That is a posterior one is called the waxillum or standard, and it encloses the two lateral petals. They are called the wings or alae, and which in turn encloses the other petals, that is the keel or carina. And these petals are united. They are united together, but all here they are free petals. So, and then under the next category, that is zygomorphic gamopetalous, bilabiate lips, corolla mouth. That is, they have the two lips, and in between the lips they have the mouth, that is corolla mouth. Example is ocimum, the place in between the lips, that is called the corolla mouth. And the next type is ligulate. Here the upper part of the petal is long, and they look, okay, that is flattened tongue-like structures with short arrow tubes. And example is ray florets of sunflower. So these are the different forms of corolla. So we saw about the calyx and about the modifications of the calyx. And what about what are the modifications that are in different plants? And also we saw the corolla and different types of corolla, or the petals that are present in different type of plants. And the four categories, that is actinomorphic polypetalous, actinomorphic gamopetalous, zygomorphic polypetalous, and zygomorphic gamopetalous. Clear, right? So the next is the estivation. So what do you mean by estivation? It is the mode of arrangement of sepals and petals in flower beds. How the petals and sepals are arranged with respect to each other. So types of estivation is valvate estivation, twisted estivation, imbricate estivation, maxillary or papilionaceous estivation. So these are the different types of estivation. So we'll see in detail about what is the difference between all these types. So if you take the valvate estivation, here the sepals or petals in a whorl just touch one another at the margin without overlapping. So if you see the structure, so these are the different sepals or the petals. So they do not touch each other. So you could have seen this type of class. So the petals are separated. There is no, they are free. They are not connected like so. Here they just touch one another without overlapping. Example is calotropis. So while drawing all this, we have to be clear that it should, these two lines should not touch each other. So this is the valvate estivation. Then next is the twisted estivation. So what do you mean by twisted estivation? So one margin of appendage overlaps that of the next one. So if you see the hibiscus, you can see it clearly that one petal is above the other petal. So this type of estivation is called the twisted estivation. So when you're drawing, you have to be specific. Like, so here it is interior, and here it is exterior, and here interior, exterior, and here again interior, and this is exterior. So there will be alternative exterior and interior. Like, so one margin of the appendage overlaps that of the next one, and so on. So example here is China rose, lady's finger, and cotton. They are examples for the twisted estivation. Okay. And then imbricate estivation. So what do you mean by imbricate estivation? the margin of sepals or petals overlap one another, but not in any particular direction. So in the previous one, the twisted distribution, we saw that there is a regular overlapping, like one exterior, one interior, like there is a complete overlapping. But here they overlap one another, but not in any particular direction. For example, here if you see, here the both the ends are interior. Here one exterior and one interior. But if you see here, both are exterior, and here interior, exterior. So it is not, the overlap is not in any particular direction. It is in a random way in the case of imbricate. So while drawing this, you have to be very clear. So this is the type of flower which shows the imbricate distribution. Example, cassia and gulmogar. Okay. Then the next type is maxillary or papilionaceous. So this is what actually we saw in that butterfly shaped corolla. That is an example for a zygomorphic polypetalous corolla. So the same type of distribution we saw. So in this, there are 5 petals. The largest or the standard which overlaps the 2 lateral petals. So this is the largest petal or the standard petal, which is also called maxillum, and it overlaps the 2 lateral petals. So these two are the 2 lateral petals. They are called the wings or alae, and which in turn, so this in turn overlaps the 2 smallest anterior petals called keel, and these two are united together. But here all these are free. They are not connected, but here they are united. So example are P and bean, which comes under the maxillary distribution. So this flower shows the arrangement of maxillary distribution. So how it is? These are the interior flowers. These are the 2, that is the interior petals, and these are the 2 lateral petals, and this is the largest one. So the largest one overlaps the 2 lateral petal, which in turn overlap the 2 smallest anterior petal. Okay, so that is called the key. And there is another type of distribution that is called the quincuncial. So here how it will be is, there are 5 petals. This one is exterior, and here, but the other one is completely interior, and the other one will be completely exterior, but one interior and exterior, and here it is completely interior. So what is the type of arrangement here? So there are 5 petals, 2 of them are completely internal and 2 are completely external. So these 2 are completely external and these 2 are completely internal, and one is internal. So if you take this is internal and this is external. So the example for quincuncial is Murraya. So how is it here? Out of the 5 petals, 2 are completely exterior, 2 are completely interior, and one is like one interior and one exterior. This is quincuncial. So these are the different types of distributions. So hope you are clear with that, right? Valvate, twisted, imbricate, maxillary, and then quincuncial. This occurs in some species. So these are the different types of distribution. Okay, is it clear? Any doubts? So we'll see a few questions. So which of the following flowers is not actinomorphic? So you have to be clear, not actinomorphic. That is, it is not radially symmetrical. It is mustard, datura, chili, or pea. So which is the correct option in this? So we have to be clear with the examples. Yeah, it is option D. D is the correct option. Because we saw under actinomorphic or radially symmetry, we saw these are the examples. Mustard, datura, chilpi, all comes under the, they are all actinomorphic. Only P is not actinomorphic. So D is the correct option. Okay. And next question. Choose the incorrect match. Zygomorphic flowers or bilateral symmetry, it is P, Gulmogar, B, and Cassia. So these are the examples for bilateral symmetry. And the second option is asymmetric or irregular flower, Canna. Inferior ovary, P. Superior ovary or hypogynous flower is mustard, China rose, and brinjal. So which is the correct option? Yes, option C is correct because all the other options are, they are the exact match. Zygomorphic flowers, example P, Gulmogar, bean, and cassia. And asymmetric flower is Canna, that is also correct option. So these are all correct options. That's correct. And superior ovary hypogynous flower, example is mustard, China rose, and brinjal. But the inferior ovary P is the incorrect match. But inferior ovary is actually present in cucumber, ray, florets of sunflower and not in P. So option C is the incorrect match. Okay. So now match column 1 and column 2 about volvate distribution, twisted distribution, imbricate distribution, maxillary or papillaceous distribution. So you should know the examples here. For valvate, what is the example we saw? So based on the example, you first match it and then you correlate with the answer and find out which option is the correct option. Yes, option A, good. So why it is option A? Valvate, example is Calotropis, and twisted, the example is China rose, lady's finger, and cotton. And imbricate, it is cassia and gulmohar, and maxillary, pea and beans. So A, 2, then B, 1, then C, 3, then D, 4. So it correlates with option A. Okay. In China rose, the flowers are actinomorphic, hypogynous with twisted distribution. Actinomorphic, epigynous with valvate distribution. Zygomorphic, hypogynous with imbricate distribution. Zygomorphic, epigynous with twisted distribution. So which is the correct option with regard to China rose? So we saw under different categories. Under hypogynous, so what examples we saw? Under twisted distribution, what are the examples? So like that we have to correlate it and find out for China rose. Yes, it is option A. So we saw the example as actinomorphic, hypogynous with twisted distribution as an example. That is China rose, it shows all these features. Actinomorphic, hypogynous with twisted distribution. Okay. So, and then we'll see a few more questions. A flower with their superior ovary is called hypogynous, perigynous, epigynous, and syncarpous. So, flower with the superior ovary. Superior ovary is called, yes, hypogynous is the correct option. Good. Then next question, that this is related to inflorescence that we saw yesterday, right? If a rhizome inflorescence is branched, if a rhizome Raceme inflorescence we saw under the type of racemose inflorescence. The raceme inflorescence is branched. It is called umbel, spike, cymose, or panicle. So it is the correct option for this. If raceme inflorescence is branched, it is an umbel, spike, cymose, or panicle. So yesterday we saw about the different types of inflorescence. No, actually, it is not spike. It is panicle. That is the compound raceme is called the panicle. Panicle is the correct option. So if the raceme inflorescence is branched, it is called the compound raceme or panicle. Okay. So panicle is the correct option for this. But in the case of spike, that is the main axis will be weak. In the case of spike inflorescence, that is the main feature. And also there will be no pedicel, that is sessile flowers are present. So panicle is the one which shows the branch or the compound raceme. Okay, the next question is clear, right? The maxillum, standard wings, and keel in pea flowers contribute calyx, corolla, and rhizome and gynoecium. The maxillum, standard wings, and keel. It constitutes the whether it is a calyx, corolla, and rhizome or the gynoecium. Yes, corolla. Corolla is the correct option. Good. Then the next question is, the perianth is found in a flower in which option E, calyx and corolla are not distinguishable. Option B, stamens or leaf-like. Corolla leaf-like, but the calyx is colored. None of the above. So the perianth is found in a flower in which option E, calyx and corolla are not distinguishable. Stamens or leaf-like. Corolla leaf-like, but the calyx is colored. None of the above. Yes, option A. So you are clear, right? So what is a perianth? Perianth is found in a flower in which calyx and corolla are not distinguishable. Then next question. The ovary is half inferior in flowers of cucumber, then peach, cotton, and guava. Half inferior ovary. Half inferior ovary. So the half inferior ovary is present in which of these? Yes, peach. Peach is the correct option. Okay. The flowers are zygomorphic in mustard, gulmohar, tomato, and datura. The flowers are zygomorphic in mustard, gulmohar, tomato, and datura. Zygomorphic. So what is the correct option? Yes, gulmohar. Good. So gulmohar is the correct option for this. Next question. The individual components of perianth are called sepals, petals, tepals, and brackets. Individual components of a perianth are called of perianth or whether it is a sepal, petal, tepal, or a brackets. Yes, tepals. Clear, right? Then next question. Flower in which the only one set of one essential organ develops is called unisexual, monoecious, dioecious, polygamous. Flowers in which only one set of essential organ develops is called unisexual, monoecious, dioecious, and polygamous. No, here only you have to be clear. That's what I explained between the differences between unisexual and bisexual and monoecious and dioecious. For example, here it is asked flower. So monoecious, dioecious means what does that represent? If you take a flower, if any particular one organ, that is, for example, if either androecium or gynoecium is present, then that is called the unisexual flower. You be clear in this. Unisexual flower, it is asked. So unisexual flower is the one which contain either androecium or gynoecium. So what do you mean by monoecious and dioecious? So you should not confuse it here. So this monoecious or dioecious, it represents the plant. For example, when both that is staminate and pistillate flowers, they are found on the same plant, then that is called the monoecious. And if they are present on the different plant, then that plant is called the monoecious or the dioecious. But here, if it is given as a flower with any one, either the androecium or the gynoecium, or if both are present, then it is a bisexual. So here monoecious and dioecious, it represents the monoecious represent if both the staminate and the pistillate flowers are present in the. So what do you mean by staminate and pistillate? If the flower contain only stamen, it is staminate. If the flower contain only pistil, it is pistillate. So is it clear now? So there is a difference between that. Okay, so the correct option here is unisexual. So the next question. The four whorls of a flower are arranged on the thalamus, petiole, corolla, and stamens. The four whorls of a flower are arranged on the thalamus. Yeah, correct. Then radial symmetry is found in flowers of chili, cassia, gulmogar, and canna. Radial symmetry is found in flowers of chili, cassia, gulmogar, and canna. The radial symmetry is in chili. Yes, chili is the correct option. Chili is the correct option. Then next question. Which of the following plant has epigynous flower? Epigynous. Option 1 is brinjal, then mustard, cucumber, and peach. So which of the following plant has epigynous flower? Yes, cucumber. Cucumber is the right option. Then ray floret of sunflower has inferior ovary, half superior ovary, half inferior ovary, and superior ovary. Ray floret of sunflower has inferior ovary, half superior ovary, half inferior ovary, and superior ovary. Yes, inferior ovary is the correct option. So I hope you are clear with this, right? About the flower and then about the whorls, calyx, and corolla. So what and all we saw today about the flowers and different types of flowers on the basis of different categories like number of floral appendages and also on the basis of symmetry and we saw about the distribution and about the arrangement of that is the position of Calyx, Corolla, and Androecium with respect to Gynoecium. And we saw in detail about the calyx, and there are some modifications of the calyx in some plants and about those examples. And then about the corolla and different forms of corolla that exist in different types of plants. And tomorrow we'll see, and on Monday, we'll see about the androecium and gynoecium in flowers. Okay, is it clear? So on Monday, actually, we'll have the class at 5 p.m., not at 6 p.m. And we are having the class from 5 to 6:30. Okay. So any doubts in this?